Okay. All right. Okay, let's put this in the chat box. Okay. All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Please, please, please excuse the music. I was getting myself prepared for the topic for this evening, so please, please, please excuse the music. I was just listening to a song called Road Less Traveled by a country singer named Lauren Elena. So please feel free to go back and listen to that whenever you get the chance. I just felt like I needed to listen to something that was uplifting and encouraging as we talk about tonight's subject. Now, there is no guest for this evening, so you all are just going to be listening to me, looking at me, and learning from what I have to discuss tonight. So tonight's topic, we're going to talk about self-sabotaging and what that looks like and what that feels like. So on Friday, I couldn't really come up with a title for tonight's show because it's such this topic about what self-sabotaging looks like. I mean, that can be viewed upon in many different ways, and that can be affiliated with so many different feelings, and that can play a major role in all of our lives and how we go about doing things and how we build relationships, or even with how we sometimes cheat ourselves out of opportunities. So I think that it was really necessary for me to discuss this because all of us, whether we believe it or not, or whether or not we consciously or unconsciously believe that we do or don't, we all sabotage ourselves sometimes. Some people do it more than others, but I think that it's just safe to say that all of us at one point in time during our lives have felt as though we weren't worthy of something or someone because of our own insecurities. Now, I definitely can relate to that 100%. And for a long time, I didn't even realize that self-sabotaging meant what it meant. So I never realized that I was cheating myself out of some opportunities or some chances to move forward because of my own insecurities until I pointed that out to myself. So it was definitely eye-opening for me to learn about that and to view that from a different perspective. Now, when we talk about sabotaging ourselves, when we think about the ways we sabotage ourselves, we often think about our relationships, not just romantic relationships, but we also think about our friendships and the bonds that we form with our coworkers, our family, our relatives, and people that we just affiliate ourselves with on a daily basis. Now, I read up on what it means to sabotage yourself in a relationship, and then there was an article that was written by Annabelle Bernard Farnier in February of this year, on the 16th of February to be exact. It says that you meet someone new, and this was reviewed by licensed clinical social worker Amy Morin. And this article is titled, "Are You Sabotaging Your Relationships?" And in the subtitles, it says, "Warning Signs That You Might Be Sabotaging a Good Thing." So it gives you different things. Oh, before I begin, I almost forgot. Thank you, Miss Breezy, for tuning in. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Breezy and Miss Cynthia Williams for helping my mom and I this evening. We had a family get together this evening, my mom and I, and Miss Cynthia Williams makes the best chicken salad sandwiches. So I highly recommend you guys reach out to her. And, those chicken salad sandwiches were awesome. I'm going completely off topic, but since she chimed in, that was a great reminder. So again, thank you, Miss Breezy, and thank you, Miss Cynthia Williams, for coming out and helping us out, with the chicken salad sandwiches for our menu for this past weekend. My mom and I had to get together with our family and friends, and it was amazing. It was the first time we've been able to do that in such a long time since the pandemic started. But since we are all fully vaccinated, we managed to make that work. So thanks again. So I digress. When we talk about self-sabotaging relationships, we can often talk about we can often talk about we can often think about our relationships and how we form bonds with other people. So the article from Miss Annabelle Bernard Fournier and the licensed clinical social worker Amy Morin says that you meet someone new and happily date for a little while. The connection is great, there's chemistry, and it becomes fun. You start spending more and more time together and begin considering becoming a couple. But then you stop replying to their texts right away, you cancel dates, you avoid talking about taking things to the next level. Your partner expresses frustration, disappointment, or even anger about your behavior. Not long after, the partner breaks up the relationship. Does this sound like something that happens to you? If so, you might be self-sabotaging your relationships. So the question that they continue to ask throughout the article is, are you sabotaging your relationships? So some of the warning signs and some of the ways that people do sabotage their relationships are that you criticize everything that they do. You are jealous and paranoid, and and you always have an eye on the exit. Now, it has a list of causes that are affiliated with sabotaging relationships. It says that according to them, they say that the specific reasons why someone may sabotage relationships are context specific. Every person has had a different past. Parenting, childhood, teenage years, and first serious relationships all have an effect on how we act right now. One of the main reasons why people sabotage their relationships is the fear of commitment. And people are afraid of commitment when they fear emotional or physical closeness with other people. And they also say that everyone wants and needs connections, but in people with certain experiences, connections may be linked to negative rather than positive experiences, leading to a push and pull type of behavior that culminates a relationship breakup or avoidance. So childhood trauma is also on the list. Fear of connections typically come from difficult or abusive parental relationships and childhood trauma, physical or emotional. The deep embedded belief in people who fear connection is that people who I am close to cannot be trusted. Because early trusting relationships with parents or caregivers were broken by abuse, people who fear connections believe that people who love them will inevitably hurt them. As children, they could not extricate themselves from these relationships. However, as adults, they have the power to end them or leave them, even when they are not inherently abusive. Another topic, or another reason, and this is a huge, huge reason, is fear. Fears. Fears is on the list. So when they talk about fears, they say, this fear appears in two types of fears. This fear appears in two types: fear of abandonment and fear of engulfment. In the first, people are worried that those they love will leave them when they are the most vulnerable. In the second, people are worried that they will lose their identity or ability to make decisions for themselves. These two fears often exist together, leading to the push and pull behavior so typical of those with deep fears of connection. Signs. It says, there are many signs that you might have a tendency to sabotage even the best of relationships. Here are some of the most common. Looking for an exit. In other words, you avoid anything that leads to bigger commitment, meeting parents, moving in together, etc. You're always wondering, if it goes wrong, how can I extricate myself easily from this relationship? Because commitment reduces your ability to leave a relationship without financial or emotional consequences. You tend to avoid it. You might start pulling back from the relationship or start to become distant. In some cases, you might start avoiding spending time with the other person. One other term that they use to describe people who try to avoid or who sabotage their relationships is gaslighting, which I thought was interesting. Gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse whose aim is to deny the other person's reality or experiences. For example, if your partner says, I'm really upset that you canceled our date," you respond with something like, "You're not really upset. It's your fault I canceled, and you're just trying to blame me for it." Gaslighting is a sign that you don't really believe your partner's feelings are valid or real, even though they are. Serial dating. It says, your friends often ask you why you break up with potential partners so often, or the fact that you never seem to settle down with anyone. You break up with partners on the slightest of issues, only to start dating another person right away and repeat the cycle. You don't want to be seen as a player, but you can't seem to find someone who you can commit to. Jealousy. Jealousy is also a big one. And that it says that you always worry that your partner might be seeing someone else behind your back. You demand control over every aspect of their life and require constant contact. When they spend time with other people without you, you fret, text constantly, experience jealousy, and ask for proof that they're being faithful. They break up with you because they find you controlling. I've heard people in those types of situations before too. Criticism. You constantly look for perfection in a partner, even though you know perfection is impossible. You find fault with every little thing they do, from the way they cook to the clothes they wear. You are impossible to please, and your partner eventually gives up trying and breaks up with you. Avoidance. Avoidance. You spend a lot of time trying to convince yourself that the relationship is perfect even when it's not. When your partner wants to address a problem, you avoid the topic or simply say, "I don't think we're having an issue. It's going to go away." Your partner grows resentful of your inability to face problems together and leaves. I feel like I'm in a marriage counseling session as I'm reading this, but I'll continue. It says that grudges. Holding a grudge against your partner means that your anger never really goes away. It takes a lot of energy to stay mad. Boy, am I familiar with that. It takes a lot of energy to stay mad. Regardless of what else your partner does, you will always come back to those grudges. It's a way of protecting yourself by pushing away the other person. As long as you are mad, no one can really get close to you. Low self-esteem. You always talk about yourself in a self-depreciating way. "I'm not as smart as you. I'm just an idiot. Why are you with me? You're just with me because you pity me," etc. This is a sign of low self-esteem. And most people do not enjoy being told that they love someone who is worthless. That they love someone who is worthless, when despite their constant reassurance that you are a good person, you keep tearing yourself down. They may give up and break up. These are just a few examples of how people with a fear of connection, might sabotage their relationships. Note that many of them are abusive. Behaviors like gaslighting, paranoia, and control can damage the other person. People with these patterns often have childhood trauma and don't know how else to act. So that just talks about relationships, but I'm going to broaden it up a little bit and talk about other ways that people sabotage themselves out of opportunities or chances to grow and learn, not just with another person, but just in general, as we talk about this and have this conversation. Self-sabotage, according to this other article that I've read, it says that self-sabotage can seem mysterious and complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Self-sabotage is one of those terms you hear thrown around a lot, but understanding why people actually mean by it is tricky, in part because a lot of people don't really know what it means. Some people use it judgmentally as a form of criticism for someone they perceive as lazy or weak. Some people use it to sound smart when they don't actually know what they're talking about. Still, others talk about it in a way that's so general and vague that it's essentially meaningless. Self-sabotage is when you undermine your own goals and values. Conscious self-sabotage is when you are aware of the fact that what you're doing is undermining one of your goals or values. Unconscious self-sabotage is when you do something that undermines a goal or value, but you don't realize it until after the fact. People with a strong fear of failure in their jobs often develop the unconscious habit of showing up late, or doing sloppy work as a way to avoid promotions, or increased responsibility, which would lead to higher expectations and therefore a higher chance of failure. Of course, there are endless ways we all fall into self sabotage. So, before we move on to understanding what causes it and what to do about it, let's take a look at some practical examples of what self sabotage might look like in your own life. So, these are just examples that this article gives about the ways in which we can sabotage ourselves out of opportunities or chances to grow. And I just want to stop for a second and just ask you guys, what does that look like to you when someone is sabotaging themselves, or when someone is cheating themselves out of opportunities or chances to grow and learn? Because oftentimes people who sabotage themselves out of opportunities, whether it's in a relationship or whether it's a career choice, that person may not feel like they're deserving. So people who feel like they're not deserving, or people who feel like they're not worthy of the promotion, or they're not worthy of that person, that dream man or that dream woman, that person, that special person, that special man, that special woman, people often cheat themselves out of opportunities. So they do things to try to protect themselves and protect their hearts. And people who do that have often been hurt in the past. And as the article has stated, childhood trauma, it stems from a lot of childhood trauma, and past hurts and past relationships. And a lot of people can come across as very cold and distant and standoffish. But there's something else under the surface that a lot of people don't see and don't understand. But I'm going to continue reading this article to give you guys more ideas of what that looks like. So it says that it gives a few more examples of the most common forms of self-sabotage. Procrastination. We all procrastinate from time to time, putting off going to the gym for another episode of Netflix, delaying writing that report to clean our office, rescheduling that dentist appointment yet again. Procrastination is one of the most universal forms of self-sabotage because it is, by definition, delaying something even though we know it would be better not to. Substance abuse is a huge one. It says that it says alcohol and drug abuse is a common form of self-sabotage because despite the short-term benefits, consistent abuse of drugs and alcohol almost always interferes with our long-term goals and values. For example, those 2 or 3 beers as soon as you get home from work make it harder to be present with your kids and spouse. Chronic lateness. When people are consistently late to things, it's often a sign that they are self-sabotaging. For instance, always showing up late to social events might help you avoid some anxiety about having to socialize too intimately with people before the event really gets going. But in the long run, it erodes your relationships and leads to the lack of trust and respect from family members and friends. Stress eating. Many people turn to food as a way to deal with stress and anxiety in their lives because it temporarily makes them feel good and distracts from their pain. But they know in the long run it's sabotaging important values like maintaining a healthy diet or being physically fit. Commitment issues. Commitment issues. Many people find themselves in the habit of intentionally abandoning or ruining otherwise healthy friendships and romantic partnerships. Often these people have a difficult time with emotional vulnerability and are afraid of getting hurt, even though it hurts their long-term value of cultivating meaningful relationships. They end up sabotaging these same relationships as a form of anxiety relief. These are just, again, those are just some of many examples of what self-sabotaging looks like and feels like. But there are a wide variety of them that really, really need to be addressed if we all want to move forward and if we all want to figure out what's not necessarily what's wrong with us, but why we are getting in our own way. So another article lists 15 reasons why we self-sabotage. So some of them I've already stated, but Another one that's on this list as I'm looking is called the pity party. Misery loves company. It says, if you allow yourself to become a member of the pity party, you are self-sabotaging your own happiness. You can't expect happiness if you are consumed with getting pity from yourself or others. But some people, maybe you, maybe me, maybe both, rely on hearing how sorry people feel for them. By knowing how other people feel bad for them, they can reassure themselves that they aren't the problem. It's their situation. If this is you, knock it off. Again, this is what the article says. I'm not saying this. This is what the research says. If you realize that you are pitying yourself or looking for people to pity you, stop the action in its tracks. Recognize that you are in control of your life. If you don't like how something is going, work to change it. Also, tough love time. Understand that other people don't thrive on hearing your problems. Yes, some want to listen and help, but if you aren't taking advice or working on fixing your problems, the majority of people aren't going to just sit around and listen to you mope. Laziness. It says that some self-sabotaging behavior comes directly from pure laziness. It takes effort to succeed and reach your goals. It takes effort to work on your mental health and happiness. Is this effort worth it? Absolutely. Is everyone willing to put in the work? Absolutely not. Laziness is like a disease. Once you get into the routine of not doing anything, it becomes really hard to start again. But most of the time, if you keep your momentum going, you'll be driven to reach your final goals. Control of failures. Sometimes we self-sabotage because we want to be in control of if things go down in flames. You don't want to fully go for anything because you're scared of what may happen. This is almost like being 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Yes, you want to succeed. Yes, you know how to get it. Yes, you are afraid to fail. No, you don't allow yourself to take the risk. If you're in control of your failure, at least it didn't just happen, right? Wrong. If you're trying to control how you fail, you're not setting yourself up to succeed. Let yourself fail, however it may be. Set your goal, make your plan, and start it. Then let it play out. If you fail, look at what went wrong and then try to fix it. Don't try to fix failures before you give them the chance to succeed. We already talked about trauma, but we also did not talk about, we also talked about, we talked about trauma, we talked about low self-esteem, low self-worth, and low self-value. But this is interesting because this one talks about overestimating our abilities. So it says that sometimes we think that we can do more than we actually can. Do you ever procrastinate because you know you can get it done the last minute? But no matter what your argument is, you 100% will never do your best work under pressure. Therefore, you are self-sabotaging your ability to be your best and do your best. Or maybe you keep saying yes to everything you're asked when you know you already have a full plate. And the solution to that is stop taking on more than you can handle. Stop waiting until the last minute to get things done. Stop self-sabotaging your time. So it's really a lot to think about when we think about the ways that we self-sabotage ourselves unconsciously and even consciously. We're going to shift gears a little bit. We're almost done with the first half of the show, but I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about perfectionism and anxiety, because I think that can sometimes, and well, maybe even oftentimes, factor into why we self-sabotage and why we sabotage ourselves, how we do it, and where it stems from. So Perfectionism and anxiety. It says that according to Psychology Today, there was an article that was written and posted on October 13th of last year by Alex Dimitri, and it was reviewed by Kasia Perina. And it says that most people aim to do well at whatever they set out to accomplish, whether it's parents, partners, professionals, students, volunteers, or friends. But there's a group for whom doing well simply isn't good enough. Perfectionists won't stop until everything they touch is flawless. The definition of this may vary by person, but for perfectionists, it means they relentlessly obsess over their efforts and results. This so-called stable personality trait isn't one with its own diagnostic criteria, but perfectionism unquestionably overlaps with anxiety, which affects nearly 1 in 5 American adults in a given year and about 1/3 of U.S. adults at some point in their lives, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Much research has revealed clear cause and effect relationships between perfectionistic thinking and leaning, such as the fear of making mistakes, self-critical thinking, and ridiculously high personal expectations, with anxiety and other psychological disorders, according to a 2017 paper in the Journal of Psychology and Cognition. So I'm going to stop there for a second and talk about what it means to not only sabotage ourselves, but what it means to be a perfectionist and what it means to display anxious thoughts and to feel anxious about everything. I can definitely relate to that. I can definitely really relate to being a perfectionist. I know what that means. And I encourage you all not to do it because, you will be in a constant state of worry and stress. You will be in a constant state of being fearful of the unknown. And you're trying to and oftentimes as a perfectionist, you beat yourself up about what you don't know, instead of just being open to the possibilities of things not working out and just figuring out how to fix them when they don't. And just being open to the possibility that just because you fail at something doesn't necessarily mark you as a failure. But I think that just like some of the articles said, they stated that it stems from childhood trauma. It stems from how we were raised. If you grew up in a household where one of your parents were very, very overcritical about what you did or how you performed in school or in extracurricular activities, if you grew up in a household where you never felt good enough, your mom or dad may not have told you how proud they were of you, or even if they never showed any type of affection towards you, you feel empty inside. Oftentimes, a lot of children who grew up in households where they feel inadequate, they feel incomplete, and they don't feel worthy of opportunities because they never got that type of validation from their parents. They never got that unconditional love that they were looking for from their moms or dads. So that's something for all of us to think about when we think about the ways we self-sabotage opportunities for ourselves and chances to be better and do better. Now, ironically, there was an article that was written in May of 2015, on the 7th of May in 2015, by Ken Wise. It says, the title of it is, "What is the benefit of self-sabotaging behavior?" It says that, have you ever wanted something, but negative self-talk or those nearly negative beliefs or feelings that percolate tell you why you can't or why you will be rejected if you try? This is a self-sabotaging behavior at work in your subconscious mind because it's linked itself to a conscious event and does everything to squash your dreams. So due to your negative subconscious beliefs, self-sabotaging is a safety mechanism in your mind that gives you the illusion it is protecting you from a negative outcome. But in fact, self-sabotage will kill your dreams and subject you to a life of mediocrity. If self-sabotaging beliefs are so bad, then what is the benefit of self-sabotaging behavior? And more important, how do you overcome self-sabotage and live the life of your dreams? So this is another article that I've researched and that I've pulled from research and that I've gathered. It says that the common self-sabotaging behavior can consist of statements that say, I can't do that, I am not good enough, I am not smart enough, they won't like me, I'm too old, I'm too young, I won't get it, so why even try? It's not like them. These are common words that we use to sabotage ourselves. So it says that where does self-sabotage come from? People rarely set out to self-sabotage, but it's not generally a conscious decision. Rather, it is usually rooted in negative subconscious beliefs, feelings, or emotions that have developed over a period of time since childhood that you don't even know are there and that are spoiling all of your goals, plans, and dreams. So the types of self-sabotage mean that they can come in many different forms and manifest in our lives in many different ways. And there are a list of methods that we often use to sabotage our own success. And this is just in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be about a career or a person that you're with. This is just talking about your life in general. So some of those examples consist of expecting failure or not having the situation work out, the fear of taking risk, the fear of making mistakes, assuming people won't like you, not wanting to speak in public for fear you don't have anything worthwhile to say or no one will listen to you, worrying constantly. I can definitely identify with that. Having unrealistic expectations that set yourself up for failure. Critically judging ourselves. I do that all the time too. Constantly comparing yourself to others. Procrastination. Having limiting beliefs, emotions, and attitudes. So the fear of making mistakes is one I struggle with personally. Worrying constantly, having unrealistic expectations, constantly judging ourselves. I can identify 100% with all of that. Because, it's not a good feeling. But the benefits of all of this is that it says that when self-sabotage doesn't know is you having a secret weapon your whole life to overcome sabotaging beliefs by simply changing the word I can't into I can in your mind and eliminating the negative energy around the issue, the sabotaging beliefs will drop away. Some people say to overcome self-sabotage, you need to learn from your issues, stay conscious and aware of your behaviors and actions, and repeat affirmations. By staying conscious of your limiting beliefs, which takes an awful lot of energy, you are also reinforcing the negative beliefs, feelings, and emotions. This is how traditional psychotherapy works. It says, on the other hand, a key tenet of spiritual healing is that your issues are based on energy, which is neither good or bad. It is just energy. You don't need to even know where, when, why, or how about the energy. The key is to come in contact with the energy to bring it up from your subconscious mind, to neutralize the energy and allow it to simply fall away. So again, it says that your subconscious mind says that the benefit of self-sabotage is that it will protect from the feelings of fear, anger, failure, disappointment, or getting hurt based on how you internalized an event from the past that either happened to you or that you witnessed and you decided that the event was true. You internalized the negative outcome in your subconscious mind as a safety mechanism to prevent you from experiencing similar negative effects. So again, this is some really, really deep stuff that I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to share with you guys, because this is something that we all do, and this is something that we all have done, whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we are clear about it or not. This is something that we've all done. So it's just something for all of us to keep in mind as we continue to move forward in different areas of our lives, and as we continue to move move beyond the past. We don't have to be addicted to the hurt or addicted to the struggle. We don't have to repeat the same tragedy over and over again. We can live beyond that and see ourselves higher. And oftentimes that can definitely be a struggle because a lot of us who've experienced trauma of some sort or we've been hurt by our family members or friends or people that we trusted. It's very, very hard to allow people in our space. It's very, very difficult for us to trust others with our hearts, with our souls, and with what we have to share. But sometimes we cheat ourselves out of opportunities if we don't make those sacrifices for ourselves in order to get to where we want to be from an emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and even when it pertains to our psychological well-being and happiness. It's definitely been challenging for me, I know, because I didn't, like I said before, I never realized that I was sabotaging myself out of some opportunities because I was always very, very productive. I was always a great student, always an honor roll student. I got perfect attendance all throughout high school. I received a lot of accolades for my academic achievements. I always worked hard as a student. You know, I was never a straight A student, but I always worked hard, A's and B's, honor roll, perfect attendance. I did a lot of volunteer service and work. Excuse me. I was definitely active in my community, but I was very insecure about my physical appearance growing up. And everyone who's read my book and who has watched my show in the past know about my insecurities that I've had about my physical appearance for a very long time and struggling with, being satisfied with what I see in the mirror every day. So people who've read my book and who've watched my show, people who have read my books and watched my show know my story. And if you haven't, I would encourage you all to. But it's an ongoing struggle. But I'm learning every day throughout each and every therapy session to just be open to change and to be open to things if they don't work out. The fear of failure has always been embedded in me because in some way or another, I felt like I was taught that, failure was not something that was looked upon as a great thing. And that's why I feel like I'm such an overachiever now, because I always felt like I needed to do more and be more than everyone else, especially being a young man of my background. I felt like I needed to work harder for everything, and in order to build what my career and my life the way I wanted it to be, so that I could get to where I wanted to be. But sometimes I could definitely say that I cheat myself out of opportunities to just let loose and have fun sometimes. Sometimes I can admit that sometimes I can be very, very rigid with myself and not cut myself some slack whenever I need to, because of the fear of not staying on top of things and failing and making mistakes and not being able to recover from it. But I'm always reminded that I always have a support system with me, and just in case I do make mistakes, or even when I do fail at something. And I know that I'm only 22 years old and I still have a long life ahead of me. But with each therapy session that I have, I'm learning that being a perfectionist is not the way to go. I'm being filled with anxiety and constant stress, chronic stress, is not the healthiest for me from a physical standpoint, emotional standpoint, and a psychological standpoint, because I know that your health is your everything in all of its forms. And if your health is not where it needs to be, and if it's not the best, if it's not in the best shape, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to move forward in different areas of your lives, in different areas of your life. And I can definitely speak about that from experience. But, I pray that you all take some time out to think about what we're talking about tonight and what's out on the table tonight, because I know that a lot of people don't like to talk about their faults, their mistakes. Sometimes people want to be right all the time, and nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything. So it's really important for us to keep in mind that we all have things that we need to work on. We are all flawed in some way or another, and that's what makes us who we are. It wouldn't be interesting for all of us to simply know everything and be the best at everything, because we wouldn't have an opportunity to learn and grow from it. I mean, if we think about our leaders and if we think about the people that we admire or people that we label as role models, they have to have a story to tell. People who are millionaires and billionaires and people who are successful have had bumps in the road, and they have had to navigate through many obstacles in order to get to where they wanted to be in their lives. And it wasn't always smooth sailing, and it wasn't always rainbows and sunshine, as they say. So it's important for us to remember that and to keep that in mind, because a lot of people look at the journey from A to Z, but they don't really look at B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and all of the other letters in the alphabet. In other words, people don't look at the journey. They just look at it from start to where they are, because the journey of self-acceptance and the journey of success, whatever that may look like in your relationships or in your career, it's not a destination. It's a journey, because you don't just stop when you get to a certain point. You still have an opportunity to grow and learn from everything. And nobody is ever going to be a complete person or a whole person. We're all going to be, we're not going to be the same person we are today that we're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And also, it takes time for other people to mature too. So sometimes we don't think that way, but it takes time for other people to mature too. Some people learn the hard way, and with some people it takes time, and some people, it doesn't. But it's important for us to keep that in mind. I was listening to a song by Lauren Elena. I was actually listening to two songs by Lauren Elena and one song by Kelsey Ballerini. Both of them are country singers. They're labeled as country singers, so I encourage you all to listen to them whenever you get the chance, and to listen to these songs whenever you get the chance. But Lauren Elena released a song back in 2019, or maybe even last year. It's called Getting Good. So she talks about being grateful for what you have instead of looking for the next thing to accomplish in your life. And it really, really, when I heard the song for the first time, it definitely resonated with me, because I feel like I'm definitely ambitious. I'm definitely a go-getter, and I'm definitely an overachiever. And I'm always looking for the next thing to accomplish, but I have a very difficult time with seeing how things are now and just appreciating the small blessings, so that I can make room for larger ones. So I'm going to read the lyrics off to you guys. So I really encourage you all to listen to the song and the lyrics to the song, and whenever you get the chance. But Lauren Elena says in verse 1 and throughout the chorus about how grateful she is, and she talks about how important it is to be thankful for what you have now instead of undermining it. Once I fall in love, then I'll be happy. But then you fall in love and there's still a hole. Once I get some money, it'll all be easy. But then you get that money, you still feel broke. Once I get a little older, I won't worry. Then you get a little older and it doesn't feel like it should. I'm thinking once I learn to grow right where I'm planted, maybe that's when life starts getting good. Once I get a car that doesn't stall in the morning, I could make it anywhere I want. Just wait. But I can see it right now sitting in my driveway. I'm afraid that if I take it out, I'll chip the paint. Once I get a house that I can hang my hat on, I bet I'll want to build a bigger one if I could. I'm thinking once I start learning to grow right where I'm planted, maybe that's when life starts getting good. I'm afraid of both my parents dying. I call my dad, he answers right away. And I didn't hear a word because I was thinking about what hasn't happened yet but will someday. And we hang up the phone before I know it. I'm crying over the conversation my fear took. I'm thinking once I learn to soak up every moment, I'll realize that my life's already good. I thank God that my life's already good. And that definitely, again, that resonated with me 100% because it's important for us to be grateful. And yeah, again, it's important for us not to sabotage ourselves out of opportunities. I can admit that I do sabotage myself out of opportunities because, from a personal standpoint, I feel very insecure about a lot of things. But on a professional note, I have all of the confidence in the world. So I know that that's an area that I struggle with and that I continue to work with. But I want you all to have an opportunity to figure out how to get better with that, because we all want to feel happy, and we all want to be fulfilled, and we all want to feel whole. But if we don't acknowledge what the issues are, and if we don't figure out how to handle them appropriately, we will never have the chance to overcome that. So that's important for us to realize. And another song that's entitled In Between is a song by Chelsea Ballerini. And she talks about insecurities in this song. And the song resonated with me as well. So I can read the lyrics off to you all. And I hope you all really, really enjoy this topic for this evening. In between just a fling and a ring. In between an apartment and a front porch swing. In between cheap and fancy, a guitar and a Grammy. In between reckless and responsibility. Sometimes I'm my mother's daughter, sometimes I'm her friend. Sometimes I play grown-up, and sometimes I play pretend. In Kelsey Ballerini, in this lyric, she says that sometimes I'm a princess dress and all ribbons and all curls, and sometimes I just want to scream, I'm not a little girl. Dumb enough to think I know it all, smart enough to know I don't. Young enough to think I'll live forever, old enough to know I won't. That's the in-between. In between beer and a basement, a Napa Valley vacation. In between hometown and a neon city. In between underestimated and over-expectated, who I was and who I'm going to be. Sometimes, again, she repeats herself. I'm half head up in the clouds, half feet down on the ground. It's not that simple. As the number sitting on a page, when they say act your age, but you're stuck in the middle. And again, she has some dialogue about insecurities that she has and struggles that she has. And one last song that I'm going to pull up really quickly is called Road Less Traveled, and that's still by Lauren Elena. And it's about embracing your insecurities and your fears. And it's something that is a song that resonated with me. It was released in 2017 from one of her albums. And I'm going to read it to you all in just one moment. We have 10 minutes left in the broadcast, but I want to leave you all with some closing remarks and closing thoughts and announcements. So let's see. It says that, why do you keep on staring? That mirror, it's not fair at all. Dress sizes can't define. Don't let the world decide what's beautiful. You won't make a name for yourself if you follow the rules. History gets made when you're acting a fool. So don't hold back. Don't hold it back and just run it. Show what you've got and just own it. No, they can't tear you apart. If you trust your rebel heart, ride it into battle. Don't be afraid, take the road less traveled. Wear out your boots and kick up the gravel. Don't be afraid, take the road less traveled on. Take the road less traveled on. Don't follow anyone, march to the rhythm of a different drum. Why do we analyze, break out, and criticize the crazy ones? You won't make a name for yourself if you follow the rules. And again, she repeats herself and says that history gets made when you're acting a fool. Don't hold it back and just run it. Show what you've got and just own it. And know they can't tear you apart. And she continues to repeat herself throughout the entire song. She says, wear out your boots and kick up the gravel, and don't be afraid, take the road less traveled. And she continues to talk about that throughout the duration of the song. But again, I want to leave you all with some closing remarks about what it means not to just be or display self-sabotaging behavior, but also how to amend that. Sometimes we have to understand what our triggers are, and we have to understand what our faults are and what our mistakes are. We can't walk around and think that we're flawless, and we can't walk around thinking that we're perfect and that we do everything correctly and that we can't take heed to anyone else's advice or critique about anything. We can't get offended when we hear something about ourselves and not take time out to really think about how we are and what we do and how that has an effect on our lives. So I just encourage you all to just think about the ways that you sabotage yourself out of opportunities, whether it's in your professional life or whether it's in your personal life. All of us unconsciously and consciously do it. So I just want you all to take some time to think about that and to really, really figure out how to fix that, because it's there. When we doubt ourselves, when we underestimate ourselves and our abilities, when we don't live up to our fullest potential, and when we don't meet our goals, it's an issue that has to be addressed. And it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. And it doesn't mean that you're not a valuable person when you figure out what your issues are or what your insecurities stem from. It's important to figure out how to move forward. A lot of people who walk around saying that they don't have issues are big liars. Okay? People who walk around and say that they don't have any problems at all and that that they don't have to listen to anybody or take heed to anyone else's advice or consideration. A lot of those people are in denial. A lot of those people use that as a defense mechanism to dance around or prance around what the real problems are and where they stem from. So again, I encourage you all to think about that and to definitely take it to heart. I know that in my personal life, dealing with my self-image and my physical appearance after struggling, with weight problems during my childhood and even into my early teens, I know what that feels like and what that looks like. And that is a part of the reason why I'm very insecure personally. But I know that I have all of the confidence in the world professionally when it comes to skills, obtaining skills and moving forward and up the career ladder. I feel very confident about that. So right now in my therapy sessions, I'm trying to figure out how I can feel the same way professionally and personally, because in one way or another, they do go hand in hand, but I just need to figure out how to make that happen. And I know that it's all up to me. So I encourage you all to do the same. And I encourage you all to really, really dig deep and to stay strong in your faith and to definitely pray about it and speak to your higher being about it. Speak to your God about it. Speak to the Lord about it and think about it and not judge yourself about it, and don't sugarcoat anything to save face. Do what's best for you, and don't be concerned about what other people's opinions may be about you getting help for yourself, because people are going to talk about you anyway, because they talked about Jesus in the Bible, so they're going to talk about you, here on earth. So I thank you all for tuning in for this evening. Now, before I go and before I close out the show, I want to encourage you all to stay safe this summer. I know a lot of the restrictions are still being lifted. There has been some concerns about the Delta variant this fall as we all continue to open back up. But if you haven't been vaccinated, I encourage you all to get your vaccines and to get fully vaccinated, your family members, your friends, and everybody so that we can all get back to some sense of normalcy. And again, we're not out of the woods yet, so I still encourage you all to just practice caution. And again, if you're fully vaccinated, I'm very proud of you for doing your part. I did my part. I'm fully vaccinated. And I just encourage you all to just stay prayerful and to stay blessed. And I'm coming up on a year since I started this broadcast. In 2 months, I'm going to be celebrating 1 year with Awesome God Radio, with the Beauty in Us Radio. And I couldn't have asked for any more opportunities. I couldn't have asked for a better team of people and a better crew of people. And I just thank you all. I'm trying to get some content together for next week's show, and I'm trying to get some content together for next month and even throughout the rest of the year and for the remainder of the year, so that you can all continue to feel inspired and encouraged. And when I get the chance, I'm going to create a collage and post that for you guys, a collage of all of the guests that I've had since the beginning of the broadcast, so you can all see the beauty in everybody that I've had on the show and everybody that I've been able to speak with and share authentic feelings with and stories with, so that you all can definitely feel. So it can be it can feel so you can feel inclusive. It's supposed to feel inclusive and diverse. So I encourage you all to, again, look at all of my previous shows. I'm definitely creating more content for this fall and for the remainder of the summer. So I encourage you all to just tune in. So make an appointment to meet me back here on Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 at 6 p.m., from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'll have some more content for you guys. I'm still trying to get that together now. And I will see you all next week. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I don't take any of you all for granted. I continue to pray and I continue to stay faithful. I don't always make the right decisions. I make mistakes and I'm extremely hard on myself a lot. But I'm always reminded that the mistakes are supposed to make me stronger. The faults are going to make me stronger. The failures are going to make me stronger. The persistence is what matters. The resilience is what matters. So I love you all, and I'll see you next week. I hope you all take care.